problem isn't what people zoom in and say, okay, it's Jews and Arabs in this little region, okay? And Zach, I appreciate that you are a historian of Palestine, and the same Finkelstein has the same issue where he doesn't know about the Houthis, he doesn't know about Yemen, he just knows about this. If you zoom out, what you will find is that there was a Cold War, okay? There was a lot of foreign meddling, and I write about this on my blog. Since 2016, 2014, okay? I was talking about solutions. Here's the problem, first of all. The problem is when there's a regional conflict, one or the other superpower during the Cold War decides to train a liberation organization movement. They've done this in Bolivia. They've done this in many places. Now, they put a nice, they call it liberation, but what they really are trying to do is destabilize the enemy, the client states of the enemy, okay? In this case, the United States. There was something called the Soviet MIG. This was literally, okay. The Soviets helped a lot. Like a lot of the stuff that we now say the anti-Zionists say is word for word what the Soviet in 1960s and 70s like literally cooked up. And they say this. They say that Zionists run the United States, that this was literally called the Zionist government's program. That they were going to say to all the Arabs in the Middle East, look, the United States is your enemy because they're run by Jews. And they took the protocols of elders of Zion, replaced Jews with Zionists, okay? But the whole thing is eliminate the state of Israel, okay? And so it wasn't just Israel, it was Jordan too, because Jordan was a real state. In 1949, the Jericho Conference, all the notables in Jordan, in the West Bank, many of whom never had to move, in 1947, never had to flee anywhere, okay? Accepted the rule of the Jordanian king, Abdullah, who, by the way, tell me if I'm saying anything wrong, came from Arabia. And the British kind of gave him a consolation prize because they gave Arabia to the king, the Saudi family, okay? So they gave to the Hashemites, Jordan. Now, this guy was successful at keeping law and order, and Jordan was considered ungovernable, and they didn't even want it, but then they added it to the Palestine, in 2021, they added it to the mandate in Palestine. And then the League of Nations, like, okay, this whole thing in Palestine. They said the Jews can't live in Jordan, so no Jews, this whole land, no Jews. But in 1949, they voluntarily all accepted the sovereignty of the Jordanian king. So here's my point. Jordan was a real state. It has a real economy. It's big. And since 1988, it withdraws Palestinian nationhood from Palestinians. Why? You could see actually Human Rights Watch says this. 1 second, this is important. Jordan. Okay, so stop withdrawing nationality from Palestinian origin citizens. When I say that anti-Zionism obscures all of these other things, here's the real story if you zoom out. Palestinians are a stateless population. Their identity is imposed on them by millions of people, just imposed on them by the Arab League and UNRWA, working together. UNRWA wants to get bigger and bigger, wants to get more billions of dollars and employ more people, right? It's kind of a victimhood industry a little bit. I know the same as other like Norman Finkelstein talks about the Holocaust industry, you know,
the development, the aid industry, the international aid industry, all of these industries, the weapons industry, right? I mean, yes, yeah. Go on.
Okay, so unfortunately, the unintended side effect, or maybe intended, was that the Arab League said, okay, well, UNRWA is taking care of these people. They live in settlements, in tents or whatever, in refugee camps, just like Jews used to live in ghettos. And they say basically, okay, well, we're not going to give them citizenship. They can't integrate into our societies. They can't own land. They're going to be second class. So if you look, this is what people don't talk about. Kuwait. Why were the Palestinians expelled out of Kuwait? It was because of the PLO. The PLO took the wrong side. They took the side of Saddam Hussein, right? Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians ethnically cleansed from Kuwait. Then you have Jordan, civil war, 1970, right? Black September. What happened there? PLO. It was started in 1964. Arafat was installed by the Soviets or something like 1967. 1970, there's a civil war, and guess what? Instead of killing Arafat and these militant organizations, the King of Jordan just sends them over to Lebanon. So what happens in Lebanon a few years later? Lebanon civil war, right? And you talk about the roots of the Lebanon civil war. Who's involved? The PLO, Palestine. Again, the Christian, at the time they were fighting Christian militias. Then obviously Israel got involved. Then Hezbollah started because they wanted to protect the Shias during the civil war. But what I'm trying to get to is a lot of these conflicts have roots in countries like USSR or the United States funding militants. The United States did the same thing in Afghanistan with mujahideen, jihadists, basically mujahideen, right? In the 80s, which was a few decades later. But what happened was 2 million people dead, right? Afghanistan civil war. And death toll was like, I'm sorry. Basically, my point is this. We got Al-Qaeda from there. Okay, we got Boko Haram inspired by Al-Qaeda in Nigeria. We've got all this Islamic instability, and it's not an accident. It's because the USSR trained a bunch of socialists, okay, not Islamists, socialists, to undermine Israel and Jordan, including the PFLP. It wasn't just the PLO, right? It was other more socialist organization. And my point is, they're not a real state. Trying to say to create a state that is run by Arafat, dude's was a billionaire, and now the guys running Hamas are billionaires. So my point is, there are stable states in the world like Jordan and Israel. Okay, in 1949, Jordan was established. Transjordan became Jordan. Okay, and one of the things they did is they cleansed Jerusalem of all the Jews, like literally just sent them packing, destroyed all their synagogues, right? Okay. So Jordan, okay, I'm not even going to argue that Jews should have a right of return to their holiest sites, which I think they should, right? And you should think they should by your own morality. So, but Jordan didn't do that and didn't give them anything. But I'm saying at least it was stable and it gave everyone citizenship. The PLO comes along and says we want to be the sole representatives of the Palestinian people. Right? And so that is why they're stateless. That's why there's a civil war in Jordan and there's a civil war in Lebanon. They're kicked out of Kuwait. What do they all have in common? The civilians, rather than being given citizenship in a real state like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait, the international community has this wet dream, an anti-democratic dream. They don't allow elections, nothing, to create a state for them out of a formerly terrorist organization, whether it's Hamas or PLO. So my point is, you're right. It's not a real state. And I think we should go back to having Jordan re-annex and re-give citizenship to Arabs in the West Bank, and have Israel re-annex and give citizenship to the settlements in West Bank. And then Jordan and Israel can make a peace agreement, which they have. Egypt already has a peace agreement with Israel. Jordan has a peace agreement. Real stable states have peace agreements. I don't think that militant organizations like Hamas are real states.